Colorado River is in crisis, and it's getting worse every day. It is a powerhouse, a 1,450-mile waterway that stretches from the Rocky Mountains to the Sea of Cortez, serving 40 million people in 7 U.S. states, 30 federally recognized tribes in Mexico. It hydrates 5 million acres of agricultural land and provides critical habitat for rare fish, birds, and plants, but the Colorado's water was overpromised when it was first allocated a century ago. Demand in the fast-growing Southwest exceeds supply, and it is growing even as supply drops amid a climate change-driven megadrought and rising temperatures. States and cities are now scrambling to forestall the gravest impacts to growth, farming, drinking water, and electricity, while also aiming to protect their own interests. In an emergency move this month, the federal government held back water from Lake Powell, the nation's second-largest reservoir, where the water is at a historic low. Days before, Las Vegas turned on a low-level pumping station that will deliver water from fast-drying Lake Mead, the largest U.S. reservoir. Even if the Hoover Dam fails, across the river basin, the tremors of this crisis are already being felt throughout communities that depend on the Colorado.The Washington Post traveled along the river, from its start to its finish, to examine how people and places are coping with a shrinking lifeline in a hotter and drier landscape. The Colorado River begins as mere streams in a marshy meadow 10,000 feet high in Rocky Mountain National Park. A few miles south, crystal-clear waters burble through the Kawuneeche Valley, its banks flanked in summer by wildflowers, spiky fallen trees and a dusty hiking trail. Small fish flicker over the stony bottom. The river is ankle-deep and narrow, hardly hinting at its outsized role as it twists down mountains, through canyons and across southwestern deserts. But climate change, population growth, competition and other threats to the entire waterway are also vivid here in the headwaters region. As temperatures rise, the mountain snowpack that feeds the Colorado River is diminishing over time and melting earlier. That decreasing runoff is more quickly soaking into western Colorado's parched terrain and evaporating into its hotter air. Less water is flowing downriver, depriving the ranchers, rafters, anglers and animals who depend on it. It feels to me like the future is accelerating really quickly now, said Andy Mueller, general manager of the Colorado River District, which spans 15 western Colorado counties. We've been talking to our water users about the impacts of climate change and decreasing supply of water on the river for probably 8 or 9 years now. It's really kind of hitting home. There are no major reservoirs above the headwaters, so many of those who raise cattle, wheat and onions in the region, Mueller said, depend on direct flow from the river. When the river's down, there's just not enough water to go around. But even before the Colorado lands in the valley, distant demands on its water begin. About 30% of the runoff from the nearby Never Summer Mountains, which would naturally flow into the river, is diverted by a channel called the Grand Ditch and delivered to Colorado's arid and fast-growing east. It is one of dozens of ditches and tunnels and reservoirs that underlie a common complaint on this side of the Rockies. About 80% of Colorado's precipitation falls here on the western slope. About 80% of the state's population lives on the other side, and those residents think too little about where their water comes from, people in the West say.